Hello and welcome everyone back to the Black Brain Trust. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Lionel. How are you
Hello,
doing, brother?
hello. I'm well. How you doing today?
I'm good, brother. Hanging in there. So, um, tonight, this is episode 80. Uh, we'll be covering quite a few Far East Eurasian topics. And if you want to follow along, you can look around in the description below. Um, it has the docket below. So, 1 second, let me share my screen. So, what's first on the docket tonight is combat Russia's combat vehicles, the Pantsir S-1, which is a mobile surface air missile system that has twin 30 millimeter guns and about 9 to 12 um, surface to air missiles. Let me play the video. What's fascinating about this vehicle because they started using this vehicle in Syria for the first time, and it has been successful at taking down drones, taking down balloons, even cruise missiles that the United States fired off when Trump came into office. I believe it was in 2017. Uh, this vehicle actually is a portable air defense system that has quite a few advanced accessories, and it works as a multi-layered deterrence from an attack.
hmm Yeah, in this first scene right here, they were saying since radar works a certain way, if the object is low to the ground, it's hard to pick it out. That's why sometimes you see jets flying low to a surface of the water, surface of the ground to avoid. That's one way to avoid radar. But in this first scene, they had the helicopter and a car going at the same speed on side of the Pantsir. The reason they did that was because to see if it'll detect either one of them, and on top of that, they said to see if it'll detect both differently, and it did. It did. That's some that's some really fine radar.
Yeah, the technology is top notch. It does have three radars. You know, it has a telescope that captures the object, and then you have the tracking radar, and then you have the other radar that is actually used for height.
hmm And I know you mentioned that it was mobile. Um, it's a mobile, would you say, surface to air missile system,
Portable surface to air missile system.
portable surface to air missile system. Now, what they said that it doesn't have to stop to shoot down drones or anything else that it's able to shoot down. It can keep going. It can go up to I think it's at 30 kilometers an hour. Depending on the terrain, it'll it can shoot down objects while it's driving. That's impressive.
Right, and the whole point of doing that is to be able to move with a convoy of vehicles, in a brigade or even a squad, and be able to protect them
hmm
on the go. Right,
Yeah,
and what it does to this drone right here, it tells me, this is a pretty lethal piece of machinery.
yeah. The first shot they shot at the drone with their two not the missiles,
Twin
but
cannons.
the twin cannons that each shoot 5,000 rounds a minute.
Yeah.
Twin cannons. Now, what's impressive is they shot at the drone for the first test. So that to me, that shows the marksmanship of the system and the operators. to lock in on the object. Now that drone is small, and one of the bullets grazed the landing gear of the drone, which in my eye was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it's they use the twin 30 millimeter cannon for close close objects, and then the rockets, the missiles are actually for anything that's inside the interior. So you wouldn't use a missile for something that's so close.
Hmm. Yeah. And then when the second time they shot at the drone, they actually shot it down. And when they shot it down, the guy and the shorter guy, he's the one to host the show. He, went to look at the drone and gather all the evidence. It was still smoking. It was still smoking. I'm like, wow, that's some shots for hot shots fired, man.
Yeah, they've been using
And the missile itself is the casing. The casing is light. The casing is made of it's not made of steel or aluminum. It's made of um, a fabric that's threaded, and because of that, it's able to shoot down missiles. Like they say, they say in the video, how can you shoot down a missile with a missile? It's like shooting a bullet with a bullet. But what they said was inside the missile are these is basically shrapnel. The how you get a it's like shooting with a shooting a shotgun with buckshots. Even though you shooting a target that's moving, you get a better chance of shooting it down if you shooting with buckshot. So in the missile is, like I said, basically shrapnel where once it's, I guess it's near the missile, it'll explode and cut up either the missile or the drone. Like he said, literally cut it up.
Yeah, right. It's pellets.
Mm,
Yeah, they're hot pellets.
yeah, all that's impressive. I'm sure I'm missing a few things, but those are the things that really caught my eye when they
Hmm.
were talking about it. They did say there were three more that's even more, I guess, high tech than that one, but they didn't talk about those. That's more top secret. But this itself is very impressive. You can you can drive and still shoot down targets at a distance with a missile, or if they're closer with the cannons, yeah,
Hmm.
or twin cannons, I should
Yeah,
say.
yeah, and it can hit mortars. It could take down heavy bombs as well. Like the Moab, if it was coming down and it got enough time to react, then yeah, they can take it down. But all that aside, the technology behind it is top notch. I mean, I haven't seen anything from the United States that's even remotely close to that as a portable system. But I'm pretty sure they have it, but I haven't seen it. And when you have technology like that, man, it's impressive. It's very very impressive.
And those are the
The guy's
cases
picking up the
picking
missile
it up,
now. Yeah.
right? He picking up. He said the fabric is as durable as metal, and also the forgot that this part right here where it can be mounted either on the truck or other things such as the ship. It's modular. The missile system is modular, where it can be mounted on different things. That's impressive.
I believe the truck is a was designed by the Indians. I think it's Tata. I believe that's the name
Mm,
of the company. I could
okay.
be wrong, but if I remember correctly, Tata actually makes a truck for them.
And they go the drone and shot down.
Hmm. I definitely want to see this first.
Mm. Yeah, they didn't shoot the drone down the first time, but the drone did show the red hot bullets coming towards it. Now I don't know if military still do this. I wasn't in the army. I don't know if they did continue to do this while I was in the military, but every so often they have a bullet that glows. So when you shooting, you can tell that you shoot in the right general direction. I just think the metal of the bullets were hot. The shell of the bullets were hot, and they glowed. Because if you look at the cannon, the thing shoots off 5,000 bullets a minute, and you look at the cannon shooting off, you see the fire just coming out the back end. You see the fire coming out the back end. I just think
Yeah.
I just think the casings were high, and so it grazed the landing gears, but you could just hear the choo, 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 choo. You could just hear it. It picked up all that sound.
Yeah, that is a fine piece of machinery if I've ever seen it myself.
Yeah, it just showed the red hot bullet, man. But you won't even see that. You wouldn't see it. You'll just be gone.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on, Jack? How you doing today?
Doing good, brothers. How y'all doing?
Good, good.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, not much, not much. Yeah, I saw that. I was watching that documentary as well. So from a military standpoint, right? 'Cause I was thinking about what matters the most, right? From a military standpoint, if you are another government and you're not equipped, hold on. If you're not equipped to that capability as much as far as Russia is, like, what are you thinking? Because I'm looking at their technology, and it's like I don't think nobody can touch them right now, man. Because that some of these missiles are just so lethal, right? And some of their machinery is just lethal. So I'm like, what does another country look at that, think, or what are they going to strategize seeing that?
Well, the thing is, Russia is a very defensive country, so
Hmm.
that's a defensive weapon. It's not an offensive weapon. So they're always on defense, so they're always coming up with a more defensive mechanism, an application for warfare. So they don't have to worry too much about being offensive because you spend money on offensive weapons. You know, United States has an offensive military. That's why they have all these aircraft carriers and their navy is so stout, right? It's on. You know, they have the fifth, sixth, and seventh fleets across multiple
Hmm.
oceans. So that they're always working on being offensive, whereas Russia is always in the defensive position. That makes it a lot easier for them to come up with more practical solutions. If you're another country, you're probably looking to Russia for defensive capabilities because you're also Russia's problems are your problems too.
That makes a lot of sense. Isn't
And it's
uh, doesn't
and it's not
Chinese
it's not just.
go ahead.
Now I was just going to say that it's not just one vehicle. You know, we're looking at the video and seeing one vehicle, but that vehicle is a part of a battery of vehicles. It could be 16 to 24 of these Panzer surface to air missile systems set up.
So when it comes to defensive weaponry, they're pretty much leading the sales on that, right? Like referring to like the S-400s. But these they don't sell these, right? It's just more the anti air defense, right?
Um, they sell these. They do sell these. There's other ones that you can't see right now that that the Russians won't allow the media to see.
Mm.
But they do. That is for sale. I mean, they sold them to Syria, so they're in Syria right now. I believe the Indians have their version as well, since they were like the co-developers behind it.
Not seeing these in Syria, do you think the Israel will kind of think twice before um, um, any more offensive attacks, seeing the capabilities they have now?
Well, they've always had them. despite the fact that Israel has attacked, Syria 200 times in the last few years, that doesn't stop Israel, right? Because that one device alone is not, the Panzer isn't really used for taking down air squads, right? It's not really used for that. You would use the S-400 for something like that, but this is for more cruise missiles and smaller objects like drones and stuff like that to take down. But that doesn't stop Israel. Israel will figure out a way. When Israel bombed Saddam Hussein's nuclear facility in Baghdad, they flew so close to the ground they were basically flying through streets to get to Baghdad.
Nah, are you serious?
Yeah. So the F-16s that or the F-15s that the Americans were going to give to the Iranians before the Iranian Revolution in '79, they actually gave it to the Israelis in '82 or '81. So the Israelis figured out how to use them, and they traversed their way through the desert and through the streets of Iraq, and actually was flying like through at building height to avoid radar, and they actually bombed Saddam Hussein's nuclear facility that he was building up, and actually got out of there. But my point in saying all of that is that a weapon system like this probably would have caught him. A defensive system like this would have caught him, but at the same time, you would have the S-400 system or the S-300 system do most of that dirty work.
I noticed in the beginning. I'm not sure if it was this video, but there that the car was driving right, and it had a helicopter over it, and was that this video?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and then they're trying to show like the radar wouldn't notice. It'll make you think that there's one.
It's two
I
different
guess.
objects. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So would that help with something like that? What happened there? Like would it have caught that as far as that radar system?
Yeah, it would have caught it. But it depends on who pushes the button to fire.
Man,
so what I'm basically what I'm saying is that the S-400 is supposed to take care of the jets, and the Panther is supposed to take care of the cruise missiles coming in.
Okay.
Because it has more missiles to offer, right? It's it's a part of a multi-layer security blanket.
Yeah, man, just watching that video and just seeing that like it shot off one missile and the other missile behind it chased it down and hit it was I've never seen anything like that before. So what that mean to me is Russia, I can tell Russia they're leading this. They're leading the field and military weapons. I don't know what U.S. had under the sleeve. Does U.S. have anything close to this?
I haven't seen the U.S. put out a product like this before, because you have to keep in mind that the U.S. relies on third party, right? Lockheed, Raytheon, Boeing. They're the ones who really do most of their most of the leverage for missile technology and weapons technology. So there's very few weapons that the United States really uses designs in house for themselves that they would put out there and that they would actually sell to other countries. It's usually third party, like the ones I just mentioned. So I did see that Raytheon does have a similar system, but it's not mounted on the back of a truck like the like the Panther is. I mean, I think the closest thing they might have is like a Patriot missile battery, like a PAC-3, I think.
And I haven't seen a video of the Patriot. Is the Patriot as accurate as some of these missiles?
The Patriot is it's a little bigger. It doesn't fire on the go like the Panther does, but it's it's for that same purpose though. because Israel uses it for their Iron Dome system.
Got you. There's one more question. So let's say it's on the go. What the mere fact it's on the go and it can shoot on the go. How does that um, help them? I'm confused because if you're on the go, you have missiles, you have weaponry that accurate, right? You know, is it really gonna make a difference anyway?
Well, you want to keep moving, right? You want to keep up with the target. You also want to keep moving. You want to keep your battalion moving as well. You don't want them to stop. You want them to keep moving as fast as possible.
Got you. Okay, so that makes sense, man.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll move on to the next one. This next one is basically their strike helicopter, the Ka-52. Based on the based on the video, this is a flying death machine. It's literally a tank in the sky. It's armored just like a tank. It has just as many. It just has just as many rounds of ammunition. And it's. I mean, it's not something you want to get caught by if you're the enemy. On top of the fact that it has a lot of automation to it, which is something I didn't even realize. It has valet parking. Automated flying. It can basically fly to its next destination at the click of a button.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually use these in Syria as well.
Did you the part where it flew backwards? That come on, man! Like I've never seen a helicopter. I've never seen a helicopter fly backwards at that speed. Okay, fly backwards, then fly backwards at that speed.
Mm-hmm.
That's top-notch technology.
It's fly, yeah. It does it at the push of a button too. It's not like the pilot is doing it. It's the software that's actually making it go backwards.
That's so when they're flying through the air and they're shooting at a target, and someone say, "Oh, we didn't get all of it," they can just back up. Really, right? They don't have to swing back around. Then they said if the tail of the helicopter comes off any type of way, it'll keep going. It won't get caught into its tailspin. It has the ability to keep on with its mission.
That sounds like some GI Joe stuff, man.
Yes.
That's crazy.
And it has airbags. So if you need to bail out, I mean, typically when a pilot bails out of a fighter jet, he goes up. But on a helicopter, you wouldn't do something like that. You would lose your head, right? So it actually bails out. It bails out the driver's side, the left-hand side, and you just slide out before the helicopter even crashes. Which is
and the rotors, well, not the rotors, the blades, when the pilot jettisons, the blades pop off, so he don't lose his head. Then the blades themselves are quality made because they said one of the pilots on a post-flight inspection, he found one of the blades had a hole in it from a bullet. and that didn't deter in any way his flight.
Yeah, the objectives stay the same.
Then on
So
top of all this, it's able to go in the air with close to 3 tons, close to three
Payload.
tons of artillery and missiles.
mm,
Then on top of that, U.S. helicopters has a what it say has a like a 14 meter. I forgot the word they use. This no a 12 meters. This has takeoff. I forgot specifically what they said. This has a 16-meter takeoff. Of that. Oh man. Then I keep saying then, but it's impressive. If not only does it fly backwards, it flies sideways.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. Keep in mind that's just one helicopter. That's not like you know you only have to deal with this one. That's when those helicopters go out. They go out in pairs. They go out at 4 at a
mm.
time.
Right.
So that could destroy a town. Well, actually, one of those can destroy a town.
That's what
With
they're
the
usually
payload.
there for. They usually dare to yeah. They usually dare to take out a brigade.
Mm,
And like you said, it's armored. The cockpit is armored all around, including the bottom. So you're not shooting
Hmm.
up from the ground up and you penetrate the seat plate. It's all
Hmm.
armored. Oh man, it's
And it's air conditioned and heated seats and
wow.
grips and whatnot. And
Like
it doesn't
but a lake.
the yeah but a late yeah the training time for this is actually pretty short. You don't really need a whole lot of training time for it because the helicopter pretty much does most of the work for you. The
Mm,
software, because if you look at the software when it was flying over a certain area, they were looking at all the cars going back and forth to try to determine which ones are hostile and which one isn't.
Yeah, speaking of the AI I think it's the AI. They input a low height in which not the plane, the helicopter can't go below. If they reach that height, the pilots get they call the voice reader to distinguish between male and female. Hey, you below the set low height level.
Or the threshold.
Yeah, yeah threshold. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. They really put some tech into this. They really put some tech into this. And then the missiles
what?
it
What?
carries are not to be messed with either.
Mm.
Go ahead, Jack.
So, how fast do these go? Like like
That one does about 150, 175 miles an hour
mm,
because it was outpacing the car on the ground. So when I think they were using the car to measure the speed, and it goes faster backwards than most cars go forward.
damn.
So yeah, if you we'll let the video play, but essentially that helicopter has it's a tank. It's basically just a flying tank with propellers on it or
Mm,
rotors on it. It's armored just like a tank. It has just as many artillery pieces like a tank would. It moves left to right, forward and backwards just like a tank would.
Mm.
But it's faster than a tank. Like most tanks today, actually fairly slow because of how much they weigh. But even a helicopter like this, I think this helicopter weighs something like 20,000 pounds or something like that.
So they're pretty much you can deter a RPG pretty much from the ground. So
RPG
like
wouldn't
oh
even get close to that.
it
yeah,
won't even
that's
go to
this.
it.
No, because it has a the what was it, Mike? They said it's the scrambling system deters RPGs.
Hmm. Yeah, there's all types of deterrents built into it that just stops it from. being vulnerable. Because that's what they found in Syria, right? The original helicopters were actually getting shot down by these Stinger missiles that the U.S. was given to the to ISIS and
Yeah,
these terrorists in Syria.
yeah, I think it's the part where it shoots the flares out, right? The heat flares.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing these the Ka-52 used in the Aleppo offensive when the rebels tried to take the city of Aleppo, and that helicopter was devastating. Killed a lot of rebels. Basically halted that offensive. Halted that offensive. Killed a lot of rebels. That helicopter. It's just like what you said. Is basically a flying tank. It's just a devastating machine. These Russians know how to build these helicopters for real.
Yeah. Is this Zoe?
Yeah, man. Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
What's
Everything's
going
good,
on?
bro. What's up?
Jack, you were gonna say something?
No, I want to say what's up, Chief.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what's up, bro?
Not much, man.
Hey, Zoe, did you see the video?
Yeah, I saw the video. Yeah, I saw the video. Like, pretty. It's a. The video was pretty impressive. That showed how devastating the Ka-52 is. I mean, I knew of it before because I usually watch the Syrian civil war closely, and when it first came into Syria, when Russia intervened in Syria, that machine was deadly effective against the rebels and ISIS in the desert too. Like those ISIS tanks got basically destroyed, and the rebel tanks too. Yeah, man. Uh, these Russian helicopters basically cut the rebels' legs off. Because
Yeah, they
I
said
remember.
Yeah.
they said one of the missiles can penetrate 3 meters of, what is it, 3 meters of steel. It basically melts a tank, melts through a tank.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you do? How do you defend against that?
You you get the hell out of the way. That's what you do. You see it coming, you run.
Yeah.
The thing is, they're pretty quiet too. They're not actually loud helicopters like the Black Hawks that the U.S. uses. It's actually fairly quiet for what it does. And from my understanding of what's been happening in Syria, a lot of the times that the Russian offensive has taken place, most of the terrorists never even knew that the helicopters were coming, so they had no way to even react. And because they fly so low and they're so quiet, from my understanding, at least in comparison to other helicopters on the market. Plus, they don't need to really get close to you. Those missiles are good for 4K, which is roughly about 3.5 miles.
Damn.
Yeah, it has a radar in its nose, and then the cameras at the bottom, they pretty clear. They can detect things pretty clearly.
So is that a type of missile? Let's say you're driving, right, and you're hitting corners, whatever. It'll chase you. It'll follow you. A type of missile like that, or is it more
Oh
of like?
no, those are these missiles on here are unguided. The ones you see in around in the round cylinders, those are unguided. And then the other ones on the pods are actually guided. Those are I'm assuming those are anti-tank missiles, anti what do you call that? Anti building, right? So they're enough to take down the building.
Mm.
The unguided ones are ones that you have to really run from. Can't really run from the other ones. Once you line up in the laser, you're pretty much done anyways.
Mm. Now I see it has double. I don't know what you call that. Where it has
Double rotors.
the double rotors. Like that helps with the weight.
Lift
Or the
capability. So you
oh.
need less area and time to lift.
Mm.
because it's so heavy, right? It can lift 3 tons of payload, right? So you would need another rotor to actually get it off the ground weight-wise and actually fast enough.
So when it comes to designing one of these, right? How long did it take to design one of these, and to create it? Like how long you think they've been planning to design this? Like designing to create this? Like it takes like 10 years or
No,
That's
I
too
think it
long.
took them like what, 2 or 3 years?
Yeah,
No,
really?
I think it took them like 2 or 3 years to build that.
yeah. 10 years. Yeah, it's obsolete.
Damn.
You just wasting money at that
Oh,
point.
yeah, it'll end up like those Chinooks that they use in Vietnam getting taxed.
Yeah.
So you have anything you want to add?
No, not much.
Let me see if I can bring it up to speed where the car was chasing it.
Yeah, that flying backwards was just cherry on top of the icing of the cake. They were just showing off then.
I mean, I doubt U.S. attack helicopters could do that, go backwards or whatever.
Well, the U.S. equivalent to this would be the Apache.
Yeah, Apache.
Yeah, I wish MOT was on. He's an Air Force guy. He would know a lot more in detail about
Isn't
that.
the Apache? That's a Marine. That's the Marine helicopter, isn't it? Because the Apache is the president's helicopter, right? Or that's okay.
No,
That's
no.
Marine One.
Yeah, that's Marine One, but the Apache is the actual the equivalent to what the Alligator would be.
Okay.
There's different versions of the Apache, but I believe that's the attack helicopter that they use.
Because Marine One is a Sikorsky helicopter. Sikorsky.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
VH something. I can't.
Oh, eclectic Tyrone says, and then China stole it.
Stole the.
Can you elaborate? Yeah, can you elaborate on that, eclectic Tyrone?
You think China? They can't do what China do? Like don't like him. Don't isn't China and Russia? I know they kind of work together as far as armies. Or do they China have type of capabilities like this? Like helicopters like this as well?
They have military to military cooperation. So
okay.
I think the Egyptian military has the Ka-52, if I'm mistaken.
Yeah, because they have the Russian warship, the landing craft, because that's where it goes. Did we miss that, Lionel, with the car racing it?
I don't remember car
it's
racing.
right here. It should be here. Oh, okay. Eclectic Tyrone says that they stole most of the U.S. military equipment plans by spies in Snowden.
That's good.
Usually these fly out
I
at
mean,
night, right?
that's you fly anytime you want to. But in regards to this section of the video, if I'm gonna eject out of a helicopter, the last thing I'm gonna do is go upwards into the rotors.
Yeah, that's
I
very
find that
true.
interesting I find that interesting that that's the directional path that they want to take.
You can go down. Well, they may be damaged. That may have a higher chance of being damaged at the bottom of the plane. You can go to the side.
Keep It Techie says that the Apache is an Army helicopter, not a
Okay.
not for the Air Force. I was only saying that I was only referencing the Air Force because MOT is former Air Force, so he would know a lot more about this than I would or anybody else would.
Okay. Now,
Anyways,
my question: who is this guy that posts these shows? What's his background? Was he prior military?
oh, the host?
Yes.
You said the host?
Yes.
He seems to be like a former maybe advisor within the Kremlin. I think that's what he was. I think he was like some kind of former diplomat.
Okay, now we're going to be speaking about the Kremlin more in other articles. For the people that's listening, what is the Kremlin? Because I get the feeling that people think the Kremlin is that big red building. What is the Kremlin? Am I still here?
The Kremlin is a building. The Kremlin is a building.
Okay. I thought it was like the Pentagon, even though it's the building, but you know what? I don't know where I'm going with this. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Okay. Okay. I was thinking something else. You know what? Never mind. Never mind.
All right. All righty. CNBC, Putin says Russia will deploy hypersonic missiles in coming months, surpassing the U.S. and China. Article by Amanda Macias. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Thursday that Moscow will deploy hypersonic weapons in the coming months. A hypersonic weapon is a missile that travels at Mach 5 or higher, which is at least 5 times faster than the speed of sound. That means a hypersonic weapon can travel about 1 mile per second. The U.S. is currently unable to defend against hypersonic weapons. What's you guys' take on this?
My take is the U.S. is probably scared. I mean, if Russia's deploying a hypersonic missile that not even the U.S. has, I mean, this is a big game changer. Now, with these hypersonic missiles, are these to, I guess, attack aircraft carriers? I mean, because I think one of China's aircraft carrier killer missiles, that like these missiles can sink an aircraft carrier, can go really, really fast, or is this just for a regular ballistic missile you can put a nuclear warhead in?
I think it's a combination of all. Usually, you use a hypersonic missile to take out maritime operations, so naval fleets and things of that nature. And in that regard, you will probably take out an aircraft carrier first, so they can't respond, with any more, air attacks, right? So that's the first thing you'll probably take out, and then everything else has become secondary.
Yeah.
You never just send one hypersonic missile. You're sending multiple, right? So you're probably going to hit the destroyers. You're going to hit the aircraft carrier. Everything else will probably scramble for cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the Russian and Chinese, especially the Russians, they're masters of asymmetrical warfare. I mean, they've realized after the Cold War that they can't match the U.S. like tech to tech, like offensive weaponry, but they figured out, let's develop these weapons that can attack America's weakness. And the aircraft carrier is a symbol of American power, but it also has some weaknesses. And if you can take that out, that basically it does major. It just renders the aircraft carrier useless, basically, because that is the symbol of American power. You take that out, it's game over. Especially in a limited conflict as well. Because I think an aircraft carrier, I don't know how many people are in it, but if you just sink one, that's like at least 5,000 casualties at once. And the West has no stomach for heavy casualties like that. So
yeah, aircraft carrier can carry up to 5,000 people. That's what they call it, a floating city. I think it's more like 4,800, but still, that's a lot of people. I did a 6-month tour on an aircraft carrier, and people would say it's so many people where they would say you will never see everybody, and that's the honest to God truth. They have like lifeboats and things like that, but not for everybody.
So how do you think U.S. is gonna play this, man? How because they're literally outmatched, right? So how they're gonna play this right now?
Well, the U.S. has their own. The U.S. has THAAD, right? So they have the terminal high air defense system. Basically, they have not so much as hypersonic, but supersonic missiles to take down incoming objects. And what Putin has been basically beating the drum on is that he has no idea what's inside those missiles. Are they for defense or are they for offense? Do they carry nuclear warheads or do they not? Or they carry conventional warheads? He doesn't know, and he doesn't understand what he's supposed to do in the long run by sitting by idly and not doing anything at all. That would be suicide for him and his administration. So what he's saying is that, well, we'll just deploy hypersonic missiles and nothing you can do about that, as a checkmate.
Now, in the article also, it says the weapons include a nuclear-powered cruise missile, a nuclear-powered underwater drone, and of course, a new hypersonic missile. My question is about this nuclear-powered cruise missile. Okay. How is there a nuclear-powered cruise missile? I don't.
Well, you think about what a cruise missile. You think about what a cruise missile really does. In abstract, it just has a motor on the back of it carrying it.
Right.
It does, when you see it first take off, that's just the initial launch of it. Once it gets 1,000 feet up or it hits its altitude, that afterburner or the that thruster is already done. It already dropped off. The rest of it is just propeller based. If you have a nuclear engine or a nuclear power supply on there, that thing can stay up there for a long, long time.
Okay, power supply. Because I was thinking more of the terms of how do they get the nuclear power that small, but it's more of a power supply. And yeah, it can stay for a very long time if it got a nuclear power supply.
I mean, I think the U.S. response to this is they'll just try to develop their own hypersonic missile. But it's kind of ironic that the U.S. is going to be playing catch up with Russia, whereas in the Cold War, it was vice versa. Russia would try to play catch up with the United States, and that ended up bankrupting the Soviet Union. So it's pretty interesting.
It's one of the downsides to communism, right? There was lack of innovation because there was a lack of competition, and because of that, they couldn't build cars very well. You know, other areas of innovation they just lacked in. They really didn't do much in terms of design. Whereas in a capitalist society, you always have competition, so you're always striving for the next best thing, and that's what kept the U.S. One step ahead of the Soviet Union.
Hmm.
Did Putin say where he will deploy these hypersonic missiles? Will it be on like in Eastern Europe, or like you said, like in the Baltic Sea, or will this be in probably not in the Pacific, but because they fear more about the Baltics, the Baltic Sea.
Well, from what I've read before, they have satellite deployment capabilities, so they can basically deploy a hypersonic missile from in space and let it come down at Mach 5 or higher speed. And it's not realistically there is nothing you can do about that. An object coming that fast into the atmosphere and it knows its target, you're screwed.
If it's coming down from the top of the atmosphere, it'll go faster than Mach 5.
Right, that's
It'll go.
right. The article says Mach 5 or higher, but what they're saying is conventionally speaking, it'll be Mach 5, right? That's like the fastest you can get from a missile, conventionally speaking.
So if you're in an aircraft carrier, you won't even know what hit you. Basically, it will just happen so fast. It's good as dead.
It's too, well, yeah, the aircraft carrier will be too slow to turn around, and it just doesn't have the capability to do anything.
Yeah, it is. It is very slow.
Mm-hmm.
Would you know if it was coming? Like, is the radars like sensitive it's coming to counteract that, or you just wouldn't know?
Radar may not even pick that up.
Damn. I'm trying to figure out what can U.S. do? They have to create their own weapons, man. They have to create their own hypersonic missile. They have to do it.
Oh, of course the U.S. has their own hypersonic weapons. You know, I mean, they already have that in design. I'm pretty sure that Raytheon and Boeing are already working on that stuff anyways. I mean, because that's their job, right? Their job is to keep up with technology. So the hypersonic weapons are probably the next agenda for them beyond the supersonic, right? But when you think about how the military is positioned for the United States, they really don't need a hypersonic weapon at this point because they cover pretty much all grounds with supersonic weapons. If you look at
this is why it is. Go ahead.
If you look at the missile system inside Poland, that's sitting right next to Russia's border, that keeps the Russians up at night. Because they have no idea if that's defense or if that's offense, what kind of weapon system is in there. Like I said, the THAAD system is the fastest system that they have going right now.
So again, this is more of a defensive weapon for the Russians, because if the U.S. doesn't need it, it's more of a, in anticipation of if they want to do like if the West will try to do like a naval blockade or try to build up forces to build up naval forces to attack Russia. So it's more of a, all right, I launched this and you won't know it hit you, literally, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Could very well be that. I mean, your Navy pretty much creates a blockade and keeps your enemy from even having any maneuverability. So in this regard, they would control the Mediterranean and the Black Sea and keep the Russians from getting out to the Atlantic. The other half would be the Pacific, right? The Russians control the Pacific. I mean, not the Russians. The Americans control the Pacific and keep the Russians from advancing.
Yeah, see, that's the Russian mindset. They see threats everywhere. I mean, I know people in the West would say, "Oh, you know, these Russians are paranoid," but if you look at it from their perspective, they kind of feel they see themselves boxed in. So they develop these defensive weapons as a measure that, in the case of conflict, you know, they can have the upper hand and deliver a devastating blow to whoever is attacking them.
I mean, the Russians are just like just like African Americans or black people, man. They, you know, you kind of hear it on other people's platforms where they say the white man has his foot on my neck. The Russians are probably thinking the same thing.
And you can't really blame them. I mean, they've been invaded practically every century. I mean, going back to their going back to their foundation, I think like in the 1300s or so. So their mindset is set that way because you have to look at their history and you have to look at the geography. I mean, the Northern Europe plateau is pretty flat, and many times have been invaded that way. So their whole mindset is if it happened once, it can happen again. So we have to create these measures to prevent that from happening again. They have a siege mentality, which isn't a bad thing.
So what do you think is the problem with that, right? Because you know everything has its weakness. So what's the biggest weakness from having that type of strategy as far as military?
I mean, defense is the best offense. I mean, no country has been successful in invading Russia. Probably only the Mongols, but the Mongols are just like an aberration. They were just bloodthirsty assholes. But every time Russia's been invaded, they've been beaten back. They've beaten back the invaders. So having a siege mentality, people say, "Oh, well, you know, it's like you're building a fortress and you're surrounded." Well, if your fortress has weapons that can last long in a campaign, it goes into your favor because you lose more men attacking than defending. And the Russians have a lot of land and they have a lot of people. So when they're on the defensive, you try to attack them, you're gonna take a lot of losses. Look at what happened to Napoleon. Look what happened to Hitler. So.
I just want to answer Damiete's question. How fast is Mach 5? Mach 5 is 3.5 thousand miles per hour.
Damn.
You said 3,500 miles per hour.
that
3,500 miles an hour.
That don't even sound right. That sounds crazy, man. 35,000 miles.
It's faster than the
no,
speed
not 35,000. 3,500. 3,500.
Still 3,500 miles per hour, bro.
Yeah, it's faster than sound, not light.
Yeah.
You can't do nothing, man. You're slayed.
If you're an aircraft carrier, you're dead. I mean, what can you do? You just
if the impact don't kill you, you have to deal with the shock of the force of that hitting the aircraft carrier.
And all those armaments exploding too.
Yeah, there's shrapnel. Yeah.
What's the blast radius of one of those missiles?
Well, the video we saw a while ago, the missile hit the front of a carrier that they were practicing on, and you can see stuff flying out the back. Or I think it was the side, and stuff flew out all sides. Either way, the blast was felt throughout that ship.
Isn't that carrier like 2 football fields long, right? 2, 3 football fields long?
No,
900 feet.
900 feet?
2 or 3 football fields. You know what?
No, it's a football field. A football field is 300 feet. So he's right in the sense that it's a couple of football fields.
Yeah. Aircraft carrier is good. I mean, not good. What am I saying? What am I saying tonight? It's tall.
You got some wine?
No. It's very tall. And then the hangar bay is big. That hangar bay is huge. The hangar bay got a tall ceiling. The tower is, believe it or not, you can get lost in that tower. You don't know where you're going. Then the new aircraft carriers are even bigger. Yeah.
And ain't the new aircraft carrier like nuclear powered? So
Yeah.
if a missile like that, like a Mach, like this hypersonic hits it, what would I mean? Would the nuclear reactor just explode? And I mean, that's kind of that's
Yes.
devastating.
Yeah. Hopefully they have protocols in place to shut it down or automatically shut it down if something happens. But yeah, that is scary.
Yeah, I can imagine they have impact sensors on. I can imagine they have impact sensors on the aircraft carrier. So, or
Yeah.
who's making all that noise? Yeah, I can imagine that they have impact sensors all over the over their ships, to protect them from a catastrophic event, in case they had like any rocks on the ground or anything like that in the water. I mean, to reduce the amount of impact on the ship itself. And I'm pretty sure that those nuclear that whole nuclear cabin is isolated too, with multiple walls and things like that.
And that's crazy, man. That's 3 football fields hitting the front, and you see it still flying at the back.
Yeah.
That's catastrophic, man.
That's a force. That is a force.
That's just one. You think that's one supersonic missile? You figure they don't just shoot one; they shoot multiple.
Like
You've got 20 or 30 of them coming at you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're not surviving.
Mm-hmm.
If you
I
survive,
want to get to this. Yeah, I want to get to this next video.
All right.
Yeah, so this next video is from Press TV. Basically, Russia and Egypt have a military agreement that they signed, I think, a year and a half ago, where Russia has given Egypt permission to utilize the airspace over Crimea, and Egypt has given Russia permission to use the airspace over the Mediterranean, as well as part of the Red Sea, as well as there's talk about a joint naval port being built outside of Cairo. So let me play the video. It's a short video. So it looks like these military drills end on Friday.
It's pretty interesting to see the Russian and Egyptian ties have been getting stronger. If I can remember, Egypt is one of the few Middle Eastern countries that support Bashar Assad. Like they're against the whole Sunni uprising in Syria. Meanwhile, Egypt is like majority Sunni, and even though the U.S. has ties with Egypt, I think Egypt is looking for options because they realize the U.S. time is up, and they see Russia as a better partner, especially after the coup, where the U.S. I think cut off aid to Egypt for a couple of months, and the Egyptians were pretty pissed about that. So I guess they don't want a repeat of that, but it's pretty interesting. This is pretty much a game changer in the Mid East.
Yeah. Russia has always had a strong relationship with Egypt since Nasser, when they wanted to take back the Suez Canal from the British, and the British and the French and the Israelis tried to take it from them, and the United States stepped in and said, "No, I don't think so." But they've always had a strong relationship with Egypt. That's what basically kept them afloat, militarily speaking, as well as politically. So in 1967, when they lost all their planes, it was Russia who resupplied them because of the 67 war, the 6-Day War. And then in 73, it was Russia who supplied them with all their artillery, as well as Syria as well. So there's always been a strong relationship between Moscow and Cairo.
Yeah, yeah, and it's been interesting to see that these past couple of years, Egypt is buying more Russian weaponry. I mean, they still get aid from the United States. I mean, that aid is basically to keep Egypt from being hostile to Israel. But it's interesting to see that the Egyptians, I guess, come to realization that after seeing what the Russians did in Syria, that they can trust the Russians in case of shit ever went down in Egypt.
Well,
So there's two things that
I was gonna say,
hey, what's going on, going, brother?
hey, what's up, brother Mike? What's up,
Mike?
brother Mike? What's going on, Lionel? What's up, man? What's up, panel? How you guys doing?
What's up, Nagon?
Come on, man. Go ahead,
Man,
jump right in. Jump right in, please.
Rocking. Yeah, one of the big things is I think people want to kind of look at the whole deal that was done between Israel and Egypt. Really after the 6 Days War and all these different going on in the Middle East, that Egypt was really a big part of, but that Sadat ultimately ended up ultimately signing, which cost him his life. That agreement is still kind of in effect to a large extent.
Camp David Accord.
Yeah. Well, that was big with Carter. With Carter, so he pulled that off, and and that whole deal is really it's still really in effect now. And as far as armaments and so forth, that was to really kind of keep Egypt cool in the Middle East, so they didn't create that's Africa. Calling the Middle East is pretty funny, but still, that was to keep that region clear, so they could so America could do what it wanted in the Middle East without a fairly powerful entity like Egypt from intervening. And that's still pretty much I don't know if we could say, but that's still pretty much the deal right now. And how the Russians are going to play this with respect to the Egyptians and all that. It's kind of interesting to see that they're buying armaments from them and doing a lot of different things. It's I think this could be potentially problematic. I don't know how you guys are looking at this down the line, but it looks very interesting to see kind of what's shaping up there right now, especially with respect to Egypt, especially in the in Syria as well. So, Mike, I don't know what's your full take on this, guys? As I don't know, continuing to play this game this way, are they going to break in a different direction? How do you?
Egypt is a strategic.
I'm sorry.
Egypt is a strategic
Go ahead.
country, and Egypt is a strategic country in Africa, right? Because they control the Suez Canal. They also have the Mediterranean. They sit in a very hostile neighborhood. They have Libya to their west. They have the Ethiopians to the south, Sudan to the south. They have the Nile River conflict right now because Ethiopia is planning to build a dam, and when Morsi got into power, that was the first thing he wanted to do was go bomb Ethiopia, which would be catastrophic because the pushback from that would have cost him his the presidency, and not just the presidency. It would have probably collapsed Egypt overnight. Egypt has the stomach to fight, but with the amount of terrorist attacks that's happening inside the capital, the conflict inside the desert, inside the Sinai Peninsula, and then you take into consideration the conflict inside Yemen. Yemen could actually shut down any cargo ships coming up inside the Red Sea. Egypt has a lot in its hands, so they need help, and the Russians are a strategic partner for them for that very reason.
And
they
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that the Russians had two helicopter landing warships that were built by the French, and the Americans and probably NATO were the ones who snatched all the gear out of it and basically held it hostage for what they did in Crimea. So those two warships that were newly built were actually turned over to the Egyptians. So there's a strategic relationship and partnership between Egypt and Russia for that reason. And in order to use those ships, the Egyptians need the Russians to help out there. And what's been happening recently is that there's been talks about building a naval port inside outside of Cairo for the Russians.
And like I said, that for us is kind of dangerous now. You know, they had the Arab Spring. They had some real interesting, internal political problems going on inside of Egypt, which I still believe that they're, the Muslim Brotherhood and so forth is still a factor inside of that country politically that could, destabilize certain types of or destabilize the regime that might be in there right now. It's difficult to say. And making moves with the Russians, I don't know, man. This is a tough one. This is a tough one. I just know that the neocons that we have here in power, here in the current Trump administration, they're not comfortable with this. Problematic.
Yeah. Because because Egypt is going to buy the S-400 missile system from Russia, and that is causing everybody in the region to be in a tizzy because they don't have those sophisticated weapons themselves. Ethiopia doesn't have this. Sudan has it now, if I remember correctly. I think they acquired theirs. But all the rest of the countries in the region that are not friendly with Egypt, so to speak, even though they're all within the African Union, they're worried too. Egypt is very fragile, So it's everybody has their eye on Egypt right now to see what's going to happen. Will they flip? What's going to be the wild card if they allow the Russians to dock their warships there because they're worried if shit hits the fan in Syria, they may have to leave Syria and leave the Tartus air base, the naval port there, and that's their fallback strategy is to fall back to Egypt.
Powder keg, man. Powder keg, bro. Powder keg. This is problem.
Yeah, and to add on that is Russia's goal for like hundreds of years is to was to have a warm water port. Like that is their main goal, and to have a warm water port in the Mediterranean. And going back, it was Great Britain. That was the U.S.'s strategy to never let that happen. Because if you allow the Russians to have a warm water port, I mean, it's pretty much a great advantage for the Russians. So
the Suez is huge, man. That's. What's that? I'm sorry.
No, you can continue. No, you can continue.
No. I said the Suez is huge. That's all. But anyway, go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
Yeah. The Suez is huge. I mean, I think I think most of the energy source coming from the Middle East, I think all of them goes through the Suez Canal. So if Russia could flip Egypt, and if there's a conflict, I mean, Russia already has oil. They can just say, "Hey, Egypt, shut off that Suez Canal. It would cut off Europe from oil from the Middle East and practically the whole world." And Russia will be like, "All right, you can buy oil from us, or you can freeze in the winter." So,
yes. Right, because Saudi Arabia had already cut Egypt off because the first time they cut him off was when Morsi was in power in 2013. He decided to go to Iran, which is a big no-no because Sunni powers don't do business with Shiite. So when he did that, they was like, you need to get this guy out of power. So they got rid of him. However, they also made another fatal move by not joining in on the Yemen war. So then they cut him off again and said, you're not going to get any oil. And Russia said, we'll supply you with all the oil that you need for free.
Yeah, when it comes to the Middle East, Egypt doesn't really toe the line of Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Gulf countries. They seem pretty independent. And, in regards to Yemen, the reason why Egypt they didn't want to get involved in Yemen is Yemen was their Vietnam, basically, because they fought a war in Yemen in the 1970s. And a lot of those generals who are in charge in Egypt were young men back then. They remember the horrors of that war, so they didn't want to get involved with that shit. They're like, fuck that.
That was the '79 war. Nagone, you were going to say something? I guess not. I know you had anything.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Somehow I got muted. Yeah, I just, I think that there's a lot of issues going on here right now. I'm pretty much agreeing with what all you guys are saying. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how this worm's going to turn. This is going to be quite interesting because I think, also I think Saudi Arabia has made some critical errors in what's going on with them right now. Also, in in Yemen and all that. That's not going well for them either. That's going so they're weakened as far as I'm concerned as a power in the middle, in the Middle East. So I'm just looking at Egypt as kind of, I don't know, man. They turn and they roll towards the Russians. This strategically is a real issue. It's a real issue here. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm sure you agree. This is a real issue here. Is it World War III? Is it World War III? I don't know, but wow, it's hard to say.
I would say that the Russians are preparing for World War III. They're finding all their little nests and crevices that they can hide in when the stuff hits the fan. If Syria collapses, they could always fall back to Egypt. If Egypt flips, there's a lot of interest because Egyptian tourism is very strong with Russians. Russians have a very strong relationship with Egypt in terms of tourism. So when Russia cut them off from any flights coming back and forth between Russia and Egypt, it really hurt their tourism sector. So what's happening now is the reestablishment of relations, new security agreements, S-400 missile system, new warships that are being lent over. It sounds to me like this is a long-term strategy for the Russians. They see it as a worthwhile strategy for themselves. So I would say that also look out for Central African Republic. They're also building the Russian military base inside the car. So Russians are getting all inside Africa as we speak, and I think I talked about this before.
They definitely are.
I think I talked about this before that Putin had put out a declaration earlier in the year saying that any Africans that want to do business with Russia is open for business right now.
They definitely are doing that. They're definitely doing that. That there's no question about it. In fact, I think it was Ghana Dan who was actually speaking about how he was dealing. He had encountered some Russian guys and they'd given him some extra money just because he was doing business in Africa. So. Yeah, the Russians are definitely making their presence felt, and they're a very strong, muscular rival. I think the United States, I think I don't know, man. I don't know where we're going to be in this. I know we definitely have a very strong military. We can deal, but if we have to deal with Russia and China together and locking down that region, that's going to be a tough water fight. That'll be a tough one. I don't know. I hope we don't see it.
Well, Africa is. Go ahead.
Lionel, what do you think, man?
I think Lionel stepped away.
Okay. All right. Anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to flip to the next article.
Where's Anti-Graph, man? Where's he at? Where's he at in this?
Think he's in the chat.
I mean, but I'll say this though: the Russians' interest in Africa because they know the future is Africa, with Africa's massive resources and also human capital. They see a lot of potential in Africa, so they're trying to get ahead of the game and being joined at the hip with China. That's they know that's going to benefit them long term. It's just now the West has realized, oh shit, we should get an interest in Africa, but seems like they're like 15 years too late. So.
Are you talking about the Americans or the Russians?
No, the Americans.
Yeah, because America always wanted.
Because America
always wanted to keep
Nicole.
Africa down. Yeah, they always wanted to keep Africa down. You know, and you know, with the World Bank and all that was in there to give these. See, and they were, you know, alongside of the future with Africa. They definitely were not on the right side. Wanted to definitely suppress Africa's growth. Other countries like you say, China and, you know, the old Soviet Union or Russia today, totally differently. And you know, it's too bad America. You know, I can't call them a very, very key in on keeping their you know, stronger in the Middle East and so forth, stabilizing Africa, which looks like that day may be done. So yeah, we made some gloves there. Go ahead, Mike. You were gonna say something immediately? Mike.
I was just gonna say that. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay. I was just gonna say, just moving on to the next article. U.S. gradually escalating threats to China. This is from Press TV. Basically, what's been happening in the last few weeks, we saw a U.S. warship almost come into collision with a Chinese warship. B-52 bombers flying out of Guam over East China Sea. U.S. wants to dock their warship inside Hong Kong, and the Chinese told them, you know, get lost. This is all within the last few weeks. You know, tariffs, you know, this whole trade war thing that Trump has going on with China, with Beijing. The doing business with Taiwan and actually planning to dock your ships there. That's an escalation. You know, the next step that they're talking about doing is closing off the South China Sea from oil imports from Iran, and as well as Venezuela. You do something like that, it can be cataclysmic for Okinawa and Guam. The last time the United States decided to, force an embargo on a country for oil exports, oil imports,
that was Japan. That was Japan. I said at the beginning. That's what really started the Second World War with Japan. That's how that started.
Right in the Pacific Theater. Right in the Pacific Theater. So, you know, if this is the game that the United States wants to play, then have at it. But I don't think the Chinese are going to back down.
I don't think so. I totally agree, and I think these neocons are some fucking idiots. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think we can deal with this a whole lot differently, but these guys are fucking stupid, and that's a problem. That's why I got issues with this Trump asshole, because he doesn't have a comprehension of what's going on in that region and what this really could mean. Not only for us, but for our allies as well. These guys are not thinking three-dimensionally. That's what's scary about this, and that's what has me highly concerned about having lesser mentation, stupid motherfuckers in there that can't think right and are dealing with with these monumental issues that could be utterly disastrous. And then that's my issue. That's part of my problem. This is an issue. Wow. This is nothing to play with right now. And see, our European allies stand a lot to lose. Oh man, I'm just not feeling. I'm not feeling some of these moves. Anyway, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I mean, these neocons are basically delusional. They think the U.S. can confront China, confront Russia and Iran, fight terrorists in the Middle East, and do nation building all at the same time. Like they think that they have no grasp of history that. What brings empires down is when they're overstretched, when they're fighting Like, all right, if the conflict was to go down with China, all right, then you have troops in Afghanistan, you have troops in Syria, you have troops in Iraq, and all over. Okay, how are you going to fight this war? You have naval ships spread out everywhere. You're going to have to do a buildup. These neocons have no grasp of what's going on. And ultimately, the reason why the U.S. is doing this, because this is the only bullet that they have left. Economically, they don't have that because this trade war is not working. It is not working as much as they wanted, and we're already seeing some backlash over here of the trade wars and increasing prices at Walmart or what have you. So this is the only bullet they have, which is a war. But I mean, do you really want a war? I mean, this is not like World War II. I mean, in World War II, the U.S. was not overstretched. I mean, right now, the U.S. is overstretched. They have troops everywhere. Like, if you're going to try to fight a war against China, it could be a Suez moment for the U.S. where they're going to get exposed, and kind of like what happened to Great Britain in the Suez Canal, where they will get exposed, and then they would have to back down. Because I don't think the U.S. want that smoke. I think they want to like scare China, but if China doesn't back down, it could really escalate out of control, and it won't end well for the U.S. I'll say that much because we've seen this happen with other great empires in the past.
Well, right, Mike.
No, I was just going to say that half of your war has already been lost. China's already sewn up a lot of contracts inside Africa, where they've basically are the sole proprietors of a lot of the resources, especially stuff like cobalt, which is what Apple is having a problem with right now, and why the iPhone is so expensive because they can't get the cheap rates that they were getting before out of the DRC, and now that China has pretty much locked it together, they can put a stranglehold on U.S. companies who are doing business because Lockheed, Boeing, all these companies need the batteries, need the raw material that goes inside these batteries and some of these cockpits for their aircraft and whatnot, ballistic shields and whatnot, coming out of Africa, and they don't have access to those resources. So the U.S. sees it as an encroachment on their sovereignty. So they're willing to use Africa as the next battleground by using AFRICOM to oversee Africa as an oversight committee on African affairs. And it's only a matter of time before you can see pieces of Africa fly off if there is a war. You can see the northern part of Africa above the Sahara, just basically go away. Go its own way, and the rest of the melanated portions of Africa, pretty much stick together.
Well, we kind of saw some of that starting already with Libya. I mean,
right.
And then let's say China and Russia kind of let it happen, but now they've come in and taken a strong position. They're shoring up a lot of the countries that are there and coming into the sub-Saharan African region, and I don't know, and so if we're gonna have to come in there, we're kind of talking in some respects almost like a ground war in a lot of respects. There in Africa, I just don't see a lot of benefit coming out of this. I don't see if we do get into this, I don't see a lot of benefit from it. But let's see. The problem is just the morons that these neocons are back in here, and their view of the world is different, which I don't think is going to jibe well with the Russians and certainly in the Chinese, and it could bring us into a global conflict, which I'm not that sure we can really win, or come out really ahead. I think we would take a lot of damage. I don't know. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that they may not be looking to win in Africa. They may be looking to burn Africa back down to the Stone Ages. Poison all the crops. Blow up all the infrastructure that has been newly built by the Chinese. Kill all your bridges. Knock down all your water filtration facilities. All that stuff. They may be looking at all that stuff because they did it in Syria. They knocked down a whole lot of key infrastructure that would allow the country to operate. So you may see electrical grids go down. Cell phone towers being knocked over. They may be responsible for a lot of that stuff, and the article that Lionel and myself had covered a few weeks ago was that the United States is working on revitalizing the Atlantic fleet. Basically, there was a revitalization of the an Atlantic Sea Force. And from what I read before, that they were practicing drills in the Niger, I think, or Nigeria, that in case there's another terrorist attack inside the United States coming from Africa, that how they would respond. So who knows if they want to try another? It might have been there. I'm not sure which one it was. I forget right now, but basically they're saying that if there's another terrorist attack on American soil that comes out of Africa, that they would have to respond into Africa and basically occupy it like they did Iraq or in Afghanistan. And I don't know if that's going to work.
Now, when you say Africa, you mean Northern Africa?
No, they just said Africa. They just said basically any part of the continent. If a terrorist attack was to happen, let's say Boko Haram, let's say they blame Boko Haram for it, then that gives them legitimate right under their laws to go into the continent and go track down these alleged terrorists who attack, let's say the Boston Marathon or something like that. That's a pretext that they're using.
Yeah.
I think the issue is, like, if there is a third world war, is that a lot of fronts will be open. So they could be a front in Africa, but then the Russians will be like, all right, bet we'll start a front in Europe, and then China will be like, okay, we'll start a front in the Pacific, and then Iran will jump in and be like, oh, okay, bet the time is now, and then they start something in the Middle East. It's just when you start a conflict of that magnitude, the U.S. is going to be caught with their pants down because there's going to be different crises happening at once, and their force is going to be overstretched. Unless they're going to try to do a draft, which is politically infeasible in this climate. Like, if they try to do a draft, there's literally going to be riots in the streets because no one wants to send their son to die because some idiot in the White House wants to make America great again. So,
I mean, 2 or 3 front wars. We know the history on that. And that is historically quite unsuccessful strategy. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't like these neocons. I don't trust them. They're fucking stupid. And we don't have the brightest guy at the helm right now either. He's going pretty well in the country just because of what he kind of inherited, but really counting on this guy to really think through some of this. I just don't believe he has the mental capacity to handle this well.
Hey, see, Boogie, if you want to join, man, I think we sent you the link already. We're going to move on to the next article. U.S. sticking to INF treaty withdrawal to be filed in due course. Bolton after Moscow visit. So this is another lunatic, in the cabinet. This Bolton guy, John Bolton.
That's what I'm saying. Morons, fucking morons in there.
Yeah.
Bolton makes Dick Cheney look like Madeleine Albright. Like this dude Bolton is he thinks the U.S. can go to war against everybody and win. He's delusional.
I mean, you see, Cheney, as fucked up as Cheney had a certain manifesting about certain things in a way where achievable. This Bolton asshole is just a straight up, kind of like war hawk that doesn't really, in my view, is kind of out of touch. I mean, he's just an asshole as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the guy's not a thinker. I didn't think much of Cheney and Rumsfeld. I didn't think much of those guys at all, and I think much less of this guy. He seems to have much less of a grasp on really what's going on. He says he's guy's basically a madman, and I'm like, the madmen do not serve rather complex situations well. They don't, because you can be lured and dragged into something that is definitely not going to serve you well. Make you overextend, make you make moves that are going to expose you in certain kind of ways where you can be advantage of. I mean, this guy's just not a bright guy, man. Not bright people in there. But anyway, like I said, I don't want to go all in on this administration right now because I don't think highly of them at all. But anyway, I think Mike, you still reading it? Go ahead, just kind of finish up there, man. I'd like to hear a little more.
I was just going to give my quick analysis. The withdrawal of the INF treaty, which is the intermediary nuclear agreement. So these arms that are basically medium range, there was a treaty to actually prevent them from being used in peacetime. This was back during Gorbachev, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
and now these
Gorbachev.
guys are pulling out of it. Yeah, the guy with the birthmark on his head. I think it's dirt.
Yep.
But,
Okay.
United States pulling out of it means that there's other ambitions. The only reason you would pull out of the treaty is because you plan on putting these missiles somewhere very close, i.e. the Ukraine. You put those things inside Ukraine, you can have a Cuban Missile Crisis all over again, and it could be a disaster.
Yeah, because Russia is going to respond. Because what people seem to have forgotten was during the Cuban Missile Crisis, as we pulled our missiles out of, or as we or as we had Russia pull their missiles out of Cuba, we did a kind of a back, door deal where people, we didn't talk a lot about it, but we had to, take missiles off, from Turkey. We had missiles in Turkey that were aimed at the Soviets, and we had to remove those as well. So, there was, it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen in Cuba. It happened in Turkey as well. We had to remove our missiles, so we did have to come in there with a certain type of deal. And I don't know. I would see the same situation would have to go down here. And I don't think that. Well, like I said, having missiles pointing at each other, once again, not a good move. And you're going to have some fairly sophisticated people to really orchestrate some of this properly if we're going to get out of this with not a lot of hostilities or God forbid, even somebody firing something. So, like I said, I just hope we have the proper mentality of people that are in office right now. And I'm not hopeful, man. I just pray shit don't jump off. I just hope shit don't jump off, because if we look at everything that's going on here right now, there could be a perfect storm that could come up to have something happen. So I'm just saying, no.
I know. You have anything you want to add?
No, this is when they talked about the number of medium range and short range missiles each Russia and America disarmed. Russia had a lot of missiles.
Mm-hmm.
Russia had a lot of missiles.
Well, like Joe said, they're paranoid.
Yeah, I agree with Nagone. And was though they're paranoid. They're going to make sure that they are well defended. Like you said, they're a defensive country, and they're coming out with all of these military equipment that's extremely impressive. When you have a helicopter that flies backwards at that speed, you have other things that you're not mentioning that can wow people. So I don't think Russia is going to be no one to mess with in the future. And at this pace, what this administration is doing, they're starting to play with fire.
Yeah, I'm not. Like I said, I'm not very. I'm not confident of the brain trust that are in there. I think these guys are some fundamentally stupid fuckers, and they're really not bright. They're not good 3-dimensional thinkers, and I think the Russians and them, I think they've outmaneuvered us and outthought us a little bit because we didn't think about things right. And quite frankly, we've put a lot of resources in the Middle East. I'm looking at limited returns from that, and that's we've been weakened somewhat in in Afghanistan as well.
Too much resources in the Middle East.
Yeah. We've been weak in there as well, and I think that's emboldened. That's emboldened, man. Some of like the Chinese and the Russians together. I think that's emboldened them to think that we can get got. We can get got if put in a proper situation. And I don't know if they're entirely wrong about that, especially if we're not thinking properly and moving strategically, and we're not doing that, and that's what's that's what's bothering me.
I mean, the best believe if the U.S. puts nuclear missiles in Ukraine, Russia's going to respond. Like they're not going to let that happen. That'd be like if Russia put nuclear missiles in fucking Mexico.
Well, they may do something like that. That's what I'm saying. You may be back to the Cuban Missile Crisis. 2018, 2019. You could be back to that again. And people and the scary thing about it was people did not realize just how close we came to really hitting that doomsday clock at 12 high noon. We came really close. We came very close. And when they questioned Castro about what he would have done, he thought if there was an invasion, he said that he was going to launch. We came. Castro said, "Yeah, if they came there, we was gonna pick some shit off. No question about it." It's like, wow. So I used to hear stories about how close we came, and I thought it was a lot of bullcrap. That it was just all political. I heard Castro and Fidel that shit out. So this is pretty serious. So that could have gone. And forget about the subs that were out there that almost fired us as well. So we don't talk about the sub game that's out here. Some of the newest subs that the Russians have come up with and what they're coming out with. So I don't know, man. We need to be real careful about. Be real careful.
Yeah, I mean the Russians. One thing that they're incredible at that the U.S. is not good at is cyber warfare. I mean, imagine this scenario. Okay, you put nuclear missiles in Ukraine, and Russia's like, "Oh, I bet," and then they put a computer virus that shuts down the entire all of Europe's electrical grid. Like, what are you going to do with that? Or even better, if there's a World War III, Russia would be like, okay, we know the U.S. is Achilles' heels of their electrical grid. Let's shut it down with a cyber attack. Like, these people in the White House are not even thinking about this. Like, John Bolton thinks his mentality is like the U.S. can bully everyone to submission. We have the most powerful military. We have the most powerful Navy. But like they say, primacy does not mean invincibility. Like, you may be powerful, but you're not invincible. So everyone has an Achilles heel.
Cyber warfare is this.
I'm sorry.
No, cyber warfare is an asymmetric tactic. Obviously the Russians and the Chinese have to use it because they don't have the same resources that the United States has for to operate in. However, this also affects China and it also affects India because where Ukraine is positioned, it's not that far away from China either, and it's only a hop, skip, and a jump from from India. In terms of the direction that it would actually go, so there's a whole lot of pushback that can come from that. I mean, they already have these intermediary missiles capable inside South Korea. Now, whether or not they keep them in there is another story. But the point of the matter is they're right on China's doorstep and they are right on Russia's doorstep, and that is not going to sit too well. Now, if China is strategic, they could take advantage of Jamaica because they practically own it and put their missiles in there, or they just set up a new mega embassy inside the Dominican Republic. They could actually do something there as well.
They ain't putting anything within our hemisphere, man. That goes all the way back to the Monroe Doctrine, bro. Ain't happening. They ain't dropping jack in any of those areas. Ain't happening. They start putting shit over there. shit's gonna start getting froggy quick. So nope. They're definitely not gonna be moving into that area. I mean, they would. I mean, they could try, but now you're asking for now you're asking to go in DEFCON 4, and then we don't So I don't see that going down, but
I mean, they have to show. I mean, the Chinese have to show that they're not going to back down on the Russians. I mean, if you put nuclear missiles in Ukraine, you're going to have to respond in some way. You have to tell the U.S. like, yo, if you do this, we're going to do something. We're going to do something that will hurt you too. It's basically escalation. So if they put nuclear missiles in Ukraine, Putin can't not do nothing because he's going to look weak. And we all know Putin is not going to take that laying down. So I don't know what they have up their sleeve, but
remember, there was already a kind of a conflict in the Ukraine already, where Russian troops were rolling through there to get them back in line. You think you're going to put anything in there without the full might of the Russian army coming right through that son of a bitch to shut shit down? Ain't no way we're going to be able to put any missiles there without that being one of the most dangerous maneuvers that we're pulling in that side of that side of Europe or Eurasia. It's just no way, bro. No way that's going to go down without any kind of response. No chance. No chance. No chance. I wouldn't look to play that. That would not be a very smart move. Would these idiots do it? It's a possibility. But
I mean, hopefully there's enough sane people in the Pentagon that could tell them, like, yo, chill. I mean, that's what Mattis is there for, but he's on his way out. So if he's gone, the crazy is going to be unleashed.
See, Boogie, you in the house, bro?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me get my headset together.
Straight ahead. I just want to jump to this article while C-Boogie gets his headset together. China slams U.S. for using nuclear arms treaty with Russia as a means to blackmail Beijing. Everybody's mad. This is coming from Press TV as well. Everybody's mad. Nobody's happy.
It's not good.
China has warned the United States that Beijing will never accept any form of blackmail after President Donald Trump said that his country's pullout from the decades-old Cold War era nuclear arms control treaty with Russia also linked to China's arsenal. This is a strategic move.
It is.
Do you think we will probably see another arms race, like the U.S. and Russia and China start building more nuclear missiles? Like
well, we're already in it. It just depends on it. It depends on if this son of a bitch goes hot or not. I think that's the question. Whether we decide we're going to start getting into some of these regional conflicts, and up in the ante, and possibly even getting it to a nuclear exchange. I would tend to believe that we wouldn't do that, because I think we would think that is not a winnable option. But there's some people out there that actually think this is winnable. Guys like Bolton and these guys think that you can actually engage at a limited level and kind of win.
I mean, nuclear warfare, man, it's not worth it. Even there's no winnable situation, because at the end of the day, the effects of a nuclear war, the nuclear winter. I mean, you're gonna have total collapse of civilization. I would think these people would realize, you know what? I like my warm, comfy home. I like my money in my bank account. I'd rather like the status quo. But because starting a nuclear war, you're talking about the end of civilization. Like, that's what we're talking about. That was the whole reason behind MAD, mutually assured destruction. Like, you would see total collapse of human society. It would be like a new Bronze Age collapse where human civilization would be sent back like 300 years. Like,
well, you do understand there's certain kind of bombs like neutron and so forth where you don't have as much explosive power, but yet the radioactivity is very high. So
the impact is very wide.
Yeah, and the impact is wide, but you save a lot of buildings and so forth, so you don't have as much damage, but you do have a certain nuclear effect that's going to kill a lot of people. So you have this going on. So you have people out here who are thinking about how to actually survive this, or how such a thing could be waged. Say it again.
Go ahead, Lionel.
What kind of bomb you said it was?
A neutron bomb.
Okay.
Yeah, neutron.
Yeah, the Israelis have a lot of those. They have a lot of neutron bombs.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole Samson doctrine.
Just about everybody has those, though.
If
they don't have them already, they have the capabilities.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can go into your local library right now. Any local library that is at least modernized has all types of nuclear science books on tap. As long as you have enough mathematicians on board, they can come up with something.
And see, to make a bomb, it's fairly easy. If you have fissionable material, you put it together, and then you just have the outer covering of a bomb that or the ignition that really just blows up around it and just brings that material in close to critical mass, so you get fission. Then it explodes. It's the concept of the bomb is fairly simple. Really the bottom line is just getting the materials together. But to make one is not that hard to do. Not that hard, So I don't know, but the neutron is a bomb that they believe is how they would the kind of bombs you would look to use. Not so much the hydrogen and so forth, which have massive megatonnage of explosive power, which could really just level whole cities and this kind of thing. They don't want that.
Yeah, so Russia has this. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, yeah, straight ahead.
Straight ahead, man. Straight ahead.
Yeah, so Russia has this Novator 9M729. I did a little bit of research on it, but the thing is, the United States doesn't have a lot of intel on it. They don't have any blueprints on it. They just know it's land based, and they saying that this is what broke the INF treaty. This missile particularly. And I'm pretty sure they on the job to find out the schematics of it, but there's no blueprints on it, and the United States has no counterpart for it either. So it's pretty looking. Excuse me, it's looking like they might want to fall back until they get some more intel on this thing, and it seems like at this point, Russia is really not playing.
What kind of missile is this?
It's a land-based.
Yeah, land-based missile.
What does it fly? Nap of the Earth flies very low to where you really can't track it very well. It goes under the radar. Is that the kind of missile that it is? Or?
It's a ground launch cruise missile. GLCM has a range capacity of 500 kilos to 5,500 kilos. But you can. I'm not sure. Don't quote me, but I think you can launch it from sea as well. But the only thing about it, Nagone, is not a lot of.
Is it a stealth weapon?
I don't know.
No, it's intermediary. So it's medium. It's a medium range missile, but it's capable of carrying nuclear warheads on it. So if you have that in your arsenal, then it's not supposed to it's not supposed to exist in your arsenal. And I think that's what C Boogie's getting to, that the Russians already have this, and the Americans didn't have an answer for it.
Are you saying that this was something that we had a treaty like the SALT II treaties
That's
and
what the
all that?
treaty was for.
Okay,
That's what the treaty was for. Is that you're not supposed to have
you're not supposed to
these
have
sort of
this.
missiles that can carry nuclear warheads. But Putin said before that he has no idea what the Americans have inside Warsaw, inside Poland, because there's a missile in there too that's similar that can carry nuclear warheads. And he's saying, well, if you guys aren't going to share information with us, we're not going to share any information with you.
Yep, which would make sense. Which would make sense. You know?
Pretty much, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the INF treaty, as far as the missiles, they can't exceed what's that
Certain range, 500K.
500 kilometers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Because they saying this thing can go from 500 to 5,500. So that's but it's just no intel on it. So that's a big problem. And if Russia already got a couple of these things, then that's what broke the deal right there.
Oh, that's what they're saying. That's what broke the deal. But the missile systems inside Poland is really what broke the deal, because that whole system is so they, who said it? Obama said that, oh well, it's a countermeasure to the Iranians. Well, why the hell is it in Poland?
That was designed specifically to deal with the Russians. That's what that shit was about.
You have to remember that Poland is what, an hour away from Russia.
That's all right, man. Come on, man.
Yeah.
I mean, in both wars, man, Poland was, when Russia made its move, it was, Poland was right there. They rolled right up in there. That's like the entrance into Europe from Russia through Poland. That's where you're at. Okay.
I mean, I think the funny thing too is, I think Trump said it. He said, "Oh, this is no problem. We can build as many nuclear weapons as we want." But I mean, this is different from the Cold War, because the U.S. economically is not as viable as it was back then. I mean, the U.S. is $21 trillion in debt. I mean, next year they're gonna have like a $1 trillion deficit. If you're gonna try to start rebuilding nuclear weapons, you may have the will. I mean, your government may have the will, but do you have the cash to do it? Because you're gonna repeat the same mistakes that the Soviet Union did, which is try to catch up to Russia and China and then end up bankrupting yourself.
Well, we've still got a lot of nukes on tap, man. We got a lot of nukes. We still got a lot of nukes on tap. We got a lot. We didn't destroy all that shit. We got a lot of nukes on tap. What we didn't do, we just didn't put a lot in strategic places to really threaten anyone else. So threaten the Russians especially, and more or less the Chinese. So we've been going back, but we've got plenty of nukes. We've got plenty. That's one thing we won't be short of. I don't know what we need all for, because we ain't gonna be able to use them all. But damn, we have a lot. we have a lot. But that missile that you're talking about, C Boogie, that's pretty interesting, man. That's pretty interesting. That they have that. So if we're afraid of that, there must be a good reason for that. But I'm sure the reason why they developed that is because we've got something that just got to be close to it, or if not close to it, maybe better than we. But if they develop that, that means we've developed it as well. Because the Russians don't do shit without,
Right. It already exists. It already exists in Poland.
Yeah.
So that's what they're worried about. That's what the Russians are worried about.
Yeah.
I just want to get to this next article.
Go ahead.
This is the last article, I think, that Jack sent. U.S. Army general wounded in Afghanistan attack. Maybe they should let Blackwater take over.
A general got wounded. Yeah, I did see that. I saw that on Al Jazeera, in fact. So a general did get. We got generals getting hit in Afghanistan. Damn, that's the big problem. The big problem that we have in Afghanistan is that we train those guys against the Russians. So here we're dealing with an army or a fighting force that we trained back in from 1980, literally to fight, the Russian army. And now these same guys who we trained and all that, and all of our tactics, we're fighting now. We're fighting against the guys that we trained. That's why we're not making a lot of, the kind of headway we want in there, because they know us. We trained them.
And not only that, I mean, the Taliban is much more stronger than it was before. I mean, it's much more stronger than it was in 2001. I mean, it's ridiculous. They have a lot more cash. They have a lot more recruits.
That's right.
So, and a lot more weapons.
They control 48% of the country. And on top of the fact that they're building a consulate inside Moscow or outside of Moscow, as we speak.
Yeah.
So they're getting diplomatic now.
That's right. I mean, we've really built, they've really built up. And the thing about it is we haven't been able to cut their cash down. We haven't been able to cut, their flow of making money. And we haven't been able to cut down their flow of people that are continually being made. We haven't been able to do any of that. So, and we train them so they know all of our tactics. They know how we fight. They know everything about us.
I mean, Afghanistan is called the graveyard of empires for a reason. It's.
I mean, the Russians couldn't beat them. Russians ran screaming out of there in 1980. Then we go in there. Same guys we trained to fight them. Same guys we trained. We're fighting the same guys that we trained. Except these guys are older, more experienced now. They with much more military intel, greater weaponry. Bigger political connections now. Very, very foolish for us to do this. I don't, I still don't, I understand all the reasons why they really said that we've gone in there, but I still don't really understand. What are we doing there? What are we doing there, man? What are we doing there?
Nation building? I don't know. I mean, the war in Afghanistan started when I was I think I was 11. No, I was 10 years old. And
it's the longest war.
And I'm 27. Like, for most of my whole life, it's been going on. And it's a money sinkhole. It's an ulcer. I think we spent like $3 trillion in that.
I mean, the only ones making real money are the contractors, the government contractors.
Yeah.
The guys who are in the business. Going. That's right. It's the weaponeers. The weaponeers, man. Those are the ones who are making all the cash. That's who's making it.
Jump in, man.
See Boogie.
I think he's asleep.
See Boogie, you up? He sound like
that's fine. We'll move on.
What we talking about right now?
Sounding kind of teethy over there.
Oh, you teethy.
Nah, man. I'm sorry. My headset goes. That's funny.
Hey, see, Boogie, you did a tour in Afghanistan, right?
No, I never been to Afghanistan. I went to Iraq a couple times.
Okay, you went over there. Yeah, Afghanistan. That's still ongoing, man. I don't know when they're gonna close the circle on that, but
Yeah, that's a whole different monster over there in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
As far as mountain terrain and weather and it's just a whole different fight, man. Those guys are more treacherous, man.
Got an echo.
Yeah, so somebody's got something open back there.
Yeah, those guys are more treacherous, man. The Afghans got a long history of fighting, man. Their fighters are more. So, like, if I had to make a quick comparison, if you're looking at, like Iraqi fighters, they're lazy. They're lazy fighters. They shoot with their eyes closed. The Afghans, they are a lot more trained, a lot better funded. It's a whole different monster over there. Those guys are really, really ready, man. And their terrain really works in their favor.
Yeah, they do. I was looking at one of the soldiers, one of the Afghan soldiers. he was like standing like next to like this little mountain area that he was, he's standing like next to a mountain. The motherfucker he looked like the rocks that he was, standing next to. He looked like some rocks. I was like, this guy's dressed. He looks like
a rock with a beard.
Yeah, that's the guy. The guy looked like some. The guy looked like a fucking rock, bro. He looked like a rock. I'm like, this guy could probably just stand here and just blend in with this shit. Nobody would even see him. It was just like, why are we here? Why are we here, man? Mm-hmm. These guys have mastered their freaking environment. Leave these dudes alone, man. Leave these dudes alone. Just leave them alone. Leave them alone, man. Leave these guys alone.
Yeah. The problem is they can't even if the United States wants to, they can't stabilize the environment because they don't have the willpower of the people. I mean, people are going to, the more you try to occupy it, and the more you try to control it, it's going to keep invoking these people to go out there to keep doing hit and run tactics against you for the most part. Right. We know that Pakistan has been funding, the Taliban for all these years anyway. So
we know this. If you
want to know why, right? If you want to know why, the Taliban isn't attacking Islamabad, it's because those are their friends over there.
That's right.
Yeah, man. I mean, they knew. I'm about to say Obama. That's funny. They knew Bin Laden was in Pakistan the whole time.
Of course, they knew that, man. In fact, Christiane Amanpour, she was on. I don't know if it was Bill Maher's show or whatever. Here she was. She's like, yeah, we heard that Bin Laden is in Pakistan, living in a villa. And people were looking at it like, yeah, Christiane, you talking shit, man. What you smoking, girl? Let me get a little bit of that as well. So people were kind of looking at it. They were laughing a little bit, but she was right on the money. Her intelligence was absolutely right. That he was in Pakistan, chilling all that time in a villa. That's exactly where he was. Cole Lampin, right next to the
your military academy.
To the military academy. But then again, it makes sense because you have to understand the Taliban and all those guys that Bin Laden was working with. Those are the guys that, the Pashtuns and all of them, they were on the border of Pakistan protecting it. So in Pakistan and all that, you're dealing with these different, tribes that don't have really, any continuity with respect to nation boundaries. They're just tribes. So that's how they look at it. They're not looking at, well, I'm in this country, I'm in this country. They're all the same tribe. So they help to protect, Pakistan's borders. So, so Bin Laden's people that he was rolling with were part of, Pakistani, forces that helped to protect them. So of course they were going to protect this guy. That was their interest. Of course they were going to lie about it. And they had this guy well protected, hanging right out in the middle of them of their military, like in their military camp, chilling with their boys,
eating the BLT.
Eat the BLT. Listen, eat the BLT. Check this out. Eat the BLT, smoking weed, watching porn films, banging his wives. This motherfucker had it fucking going on. He had it going on. He had it going on.
They knew where he was, man.
Yeah,
I have a question, man. So just going back to Russia really quick now Russia, through your opinion, Mike, do you think Russia can actually compete with the U.S. in the arms race, or are they trying to do whatever they can right now as far as cheating their way into get more arms? Because that's what it seems like to me.
Russia is severely undermanned and under-resourced. One of the biggest problems they have is their sea lift capabilities and their naval forces. They're very much lacking in these areas because when the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of those shipyards and a lot of their arms industry kind of collapsed with it, and so did those same employees and human resources. They all spread out throughout the the Western blocs, of NATO. So they found jobs over there. So a lot of their people are not in the Navy. They don't have enough naval strength. So they have to have a lot of asymmetric warfare.
Yep.
Part of what's driving their economy is the weapons trade business. So they need to have an adversary, and unfortunately, it has to be the United States for right now, because that's what's keeping their industries going. But outside of that, they have to cheat just a little bit. They don't really need to copy anything from the United States, so to speak, but they need asymmetric capabilities that allows them to to keep off NATO on their border, and as well as deal with the Middle East, because they're moving back into the Middle East, into Africa right now as we speak. So there's a whole lot that's involved, and I think I talked about this earlier before you got on, that Putin put out a declaration that he said that anybody who wants to do business in Africa with Russia, he said Moscow is open for business up to 1 million rubles, which is like probably like 100,000 US dollars. So what we're seeing now is Russia is becoming more strategic in their dealings with everybody around the world, and this is where I think black men can actually organize and say, let's do business in Moscow, and let's start designing some shit that they need and employ our people as well.
Yeah. I mean, you could definitely play that game. I've been in Russia, like I said, many years ago, but they have a strong national bent. They have some racist folks up in there acting kind of crazy, but I think they cutting a lot of that back to the fat meat, just for the sake of they know that they're going to have to do business in Africa and so forth. So they definitely are.
Right.
So they're definitely ramping that game up. One of the areas where I think people really are underestimating the Russians are they're underestimating their intelligence capability. When I mean intelligence, as far as espionage and spying and getting a lot of information and doing a lot of like I say, the whole asymmetric warfare piece, especially using technology and coming in on computer viruses and all that kind of stuff. They're very sophisticated in that, and pretty much have a fairly strong information gathering network around the world, and it's very active here in the United States. Very active. Like these Russian women and stuff come here looking good, looking fly, and all that. A lot of them are coming out of the University of Moscow, coming over here, getting educated, and they're hanging out with Americans. They're chilling, they're doing their thing, but most of them are spies. Most of them are that, because they're like, we're getting stipends from the government to come here to study. What do you think they're doing? Of course, they're getting a lot of information. They're students and spies. So their intelligence network is highly butter laid right now, and they got all kinds of people working for them. Very strong.
Right. They're nationalists because they have to be, right? Their livelihood is completely dependent on the strength of their people. Unlike African Americans, where we reward the Pookie and Ray Rays, but that's a whole nother subject for another night.
Let's not even get into that. But
we could do that. We could do that. We could do that on a C Boogie hangout. But
C Boogie. Absolutely.
But yeah, we can take advantage of Russia. We need to be, and I'm saying this as black men, we need to be more globalized with our approach to doing business. Instead of thinking about opening up a rib shack or some kind of ice cream truck. Man, we need to be thinking about who wants to do business with us. And if Putin is saying you black men are more than welcome to come to Moscow and start doing partnerships, I don't see how we can lose from this. We can only gain. We can't lose from that.
I totally agree.
One of the problems that Russians have is that they're not innovative at all in terms of consumer electronics. Which is part of, I think we talked about this earlier before you guys got on, is that they have a hard time developing anything outside of the military industrial complex. They don't have their own iPads. They don't have their own iPhones. They're just not innovative in that area. They're not creative in that area. And I think that's a part of the culture, is that they have a war culture where they only know how to build arms and defense capabilities, but they don't know how to build a simple a simple laptop or even an iPad for that matter. So
Yeah, and they haven't really gone into the commercial and consumer electronics market game like the Japanese, Koreans, and others. They definitely haven't done that, and that's something I think that's always hurt them. They've never really pursued the aspect, even in automobile manufacture as well. Everything is just serving the state itself, and I think that's a view that the Russian people have that is not a very good one. I mean, they could do quite a bit better in that regard because they have the intelligence, and they certainly have the infrastructure in which to do such. But anyway,
yeah. I mean, the reason why they only build they're only successful building military weapons is, I mean, that's their mindset. I mean, they're just preparing for that next war. I mean, Russia's been invaded so many times, so
four times in the last 135 years.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really blame them, and they lost a lot of people, like millions of people. So that affects your psyche. That's why they're very nationalistic, because their mentality is like we're all we got, basically.
They say they're still counting their dead from the Second World War. They literally still counting their dead, grossly undercounted from what people say. They talked about that they could have lost. I've heard numbers as high as 50, 60 million people. That shit is crazy. Losing that amount of people that shit is insane. That's insane.
Well, I think a part of the problem. I think a part of the problem is that they have a very flat culture. Usually because it was based on a very communist style of living where you only it was more communal, right? You just did enough to get to stay afloat. And I think when it comes to African Americans, our culture is a lot more diverse. That's why we can come up with something like hip hop and kind of export that, right? That's our trade, right? We export creativity of art.
Very much so.
That's $1 billion market that we no longer control anymore. Same thing with fashion and stuff like that. As much as black women complain about the European standard of beauty, if you really go over into other countries, you'll see that some of those women are copying black women as well.
Oh yeah, I saw that shit in Japan years ago, man. That motherfuckers walk around, walking around tanning themselves up and braiding up their hair and shit like that. I was like, "What are these black Japanese?" They were like, "They ain't black Japanese. These are Japanese ones." Incredible. Something that never even hit
big hoop earrings.
It was incredible. But anyway, that's
it's crazy because you see white girls with those because over here in New York we call them the Danakas. Those are the hoop earrings.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And it's like you see these white girls rocking, and it's like, damn.
But when you see white girls rocking those big hoop earrings, that means that's also a sign
they fuck with niggas.
I'm fucking brothers. brothers is bowing this shit up. So that's the deal. That's the message. That's the message there. That's the take home message. I fucks you. So anyway, and the white boys know it as well. They know when they see the big
spot them a mile away.
yeah, the big hoopy earring white girls, they stay away from them. They know. Anyway.
Yeah, I just wanted to get to this last video. Basically, this is a recent video from a few minutes ago that was live. So this is the ASEAN China maritime exercise. So China is not a part of the ASEAN framework, but they have been recently working with the ASEAN states for maritime security. And what it sounds like to me is that China is going to lead off by using ASEAN as their own version of a mini NATO.
Mini NATO, yep. Yep. Oh wow. Okay. Go ahead. Wow, that's deep. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just saying that this is just a recent video from a few minutes ago that went live. It looks like they could be gearing up to sew up the South China Sea. This includes ASEAN includes Vietnam, Indonesia,
Indonesia,
Cambodia,
Cambodia. Yep.
yeah,
Everywhere. Yep.
Thailand,
Yep.
Malaysia.
Yep.
This is getting serious, man. Russia doing military drills in Egypt. China doing military drills with the ASEAN states.
Well, it makes sense. It makes sense. They're showing up. If you look at those areas, they're showing up all their areas where they can easily, those seaport areas where they, or the waters that are there that could, where you could roll up and just take over their shores. They're protecting all of that. They're like kind of building a I don't know, like a fence around that in some respects. So you got to work with those other countries. You gotta have those countries protecting your front and your flank. So I mean, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So it looks to me like they're gearing up to be prepared in case something pops off. That's how it sounds to me. That's how it sounds to me, man. I don't fucking know. Mike, does it sound that way to you, bro?
It looks like it to me. It looks like it to me. Definitely. They're worried about trade. Trade routes. If you look at the ASEAN framework, it does talk about maritime security, trade routes, and
Yep.
energy as well as political framework as well. So if China typically isn't even a member of ASEAN. So if China is pairing up with the ASEAN states, then that means that something bigger is going to happen, because typically China and Vietnam don't even get along, even though they're neighbors.
No,
So that should tell you that.
In fact, throughout history, they've had conflicts, a lot of conflicts,
right?
Over many years. Yeah. So, but that shows how they're shoring up that whole South China Sea area and all that. That's pretty key, and it's more maritime than anything else. I know they're talking about resources and all that, but it's maritime. They're military. They're militaristically protecting their their shores and their borders. That's what they're doing, and they got to do it with their surrounding states.
I mean, they have to, because China wants to have like their own Monroe Doctrine, but the U.S. stands in their way. So, I mean, that's the reason why they've accelerated the building of their Navy and their Air Force. I mean, historically, China was never a naval power, but now it is, because they see that you need to have a Navy if you want to be a great power. And China wants to control their shores, kind of like how the U.S. controls the Western Hemisphere. No one can fuck with the U.S. in the Western Hemisphere. So China wants that in the Pacific, and the U.S. stands in their way. And they're doing all of this in preparation that if there's a conflict, they can have some nations on their side who can open different fronts and push the U.S. out. That's the whole key. China wants the U.S. out of the Pacific. That's the main goal.
So does Russia.
Yeah. Yep.
It's going to be interesting to see how that happens.
Now, but if you think about it, if you think about the U.S. pulling out of the INF treaty, at this point, if Russia has missiles, that we can't counteract at this moment, and if China is if their inventory of ballistic and cruise missiles are unlike no other, wouldn't it be in our best interest to pull out of the INF treaty and restock and regroup on what we need to be able to compete at this point? Because it really don't matter what the excuse is. Because now you're dealing with Russia with something we can't contend with. And then as far as China, their missiles and ballistic cruise missiles are off the chain. And I believe they got the most diverse in the world. So at this point, we are really lagging behind. So it probably would be in the U.S. best interest to pull out of that treaty. So now we can get some things in our hands with some things that they don't have. If you picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah, I certainly am.
That's just another way of looking at it, because this thing could really get messy, man. Especially if y'all talking about China is revamping their Navy. Yo, man, the United States is having problems just getting recruits right now. That's why they're starting to offer bonuses again.
That's right.
So this feminization of the United States of America, now you have an issue with your military. So got to look at that as well.
Well, like I said, maybe we should just grab some of these bitches and say, y'all so big and bad. Why don't y'all get out here and start fighting? See what they got to say. Get out here and get out here and get on a ship. Get out here.
Hey, they gonna be straight ahead. They ain't looking to get in none of that kind of work,
Nope. They're gonna be straight. They're gonna be straight ahead. You hit that right. They're gonna be straight ahead.
Keep their overhead low.
Keep their overhead.
Let me get to this. Let me get to this last piece. I think Dollar Will sent this in breaking news. The Clintons and Maxine Waters, CNN headquarters all had bomb packages shipped to their residencies and locations. What's you guys take on this?
Shit, that's really hard to say. Bomb packages. Were these real bombs or were these just props to fuck with their heads? What was in there?
I can't really see the video right now, but my question would be the location of these of the Clintons, right? How would you know that the Clintons lived there? That's not publicly available information. Like that, all that information is classified. How would they know that?
Well, Clintons, they're living in Westchester County right now. That's my understanding. Where I live.
Yeah, but they got secret service monitoring them. Every
they definitely do.
Yeah, they should be highly secure. If you have a security lax like that, where a package is being shipped there and your personnel hasn't intercepted it, I don't know, man.
So basically, they only got sent to Democrats, right?
Supposedly.
So you said the Clintons, Obama, Maxine Waters, CNN.
At this moment.
Yeah. So I would. I don't know about that. At this juncture with midterms coming up, I don't know.
Don't forget that last year. Yeah, don't forget that last year, around this time, Trump Tower also had a bomb scare as well.
They sure did.
This can get nasty, man. I mean, I'm not old enough, but I've seen the news archives of bomb attacks in the 60s and the 70s. That was very high, man. They were attacking each other everywhere.
I mean, politics nowadays is very it's very nasty. It's polarizing right now.
Okay.
And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse.
Complex is in the chat, and he said that it was confirmed that these were in actuality that they were live explosives. That this shit was live.
Okay.
Now,
these are live explosives.
Who do you think might go as far to do something like that? Like maybe
it could be some sounds like some alt-right terrorist group.
Yeah, it could have been an alt-right weirdo.
I don't know if they're weirdos. They're terrorists, and and right now they ain't too teeth-feed. These motherfuckers ain't teeth-feed. These motherfuckers are looking to get live.
But this was highly orchestrated. If all of these people got the packages on the same day, undetected, I don't know, man. My spidey senses are tingling right now. Looking at seriously, I'm not even trying to be funny because we're looking at all liberals who got packages right before the midterms. CNN got a package as well. I'm like, hold on, I got to see how this play out. Now, I'm not saying, but I'm just looking at the way things rolling. I'm like, this thing is highly complex for it to be explosive materials that all got sent. Unless it was some people from, like, you know, if you're talking about the alt-right, I don't think they're sophisticated enough
I
to
don't know.
put this off. We talking about explosive. Now, what they delivered in the mail, hand delivered, dropped off. Like, I would have to know more specs, but this thing was highly sophisticated. They were actually explosive.
Well, from what Complex is saying, these were confirmed as live. So these are live explosives. Go ahead.
Hey, dude, this my whole 2 cents on this is to quote the immortal words of the great Khabib Nurmagomedov. This is #1 bullshit. This is #1 bullshit.
What's up? What's up, brother Preem?
What's up, man? Straight ahead, man. Straight ahead, baby. Straight ahead. My spidey sense intimately. My spidey sense don't blown up. It's in shrapnel. It's on the ground. Nuclear bomb don't hit it. That's just crap, man. You know, if you just look at history, yeah, I mean, we can go back to the 50s and 60s and all the bomb attacks or whatever, and 99.999% of those bomb tactics were on the left. Were on the left, militant groups, resistant groups, revolutionary groups. The only time you can go back in this country, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, and not speculations, but with facts, to show that anybody on the right, conservative, far right wing, alt-right, or whatever, has been tied to a bomb is in abortion bombings. And typically those bombs were sent at night. You know what I'm saying?
Is what bombings?
It's abortion clinic bombings.
Nah, man.
Oklahoma City.
I think you forget about Oklahoma City.
Timothy McVeigh was a right-wing white supremacist.
Yeah. And I think you're also forgetting about, you know, all the bombings of churches that went on in the black community in the 60s and shit like that. You know, one of the most famous ones culminating in the 4 black girls being killed in a church. You know, you know what I mean? You know, these right wingers are some savage ass fucking knuckle dragging fucking animals.
And then I mean both sides are. I mean the left and the right. You know what I'm saying? But primarily on the left.
No.
And then
you and I disagree heavily
of course,
on that.
Of course.
But anyway.
And then another thing is, I mean, who believes that George Soros is going to walk his decrepit ass out and check his own mailbox? You know, or Bill Clinton is. You know, or Eric Holder is. And again, all these things are sent to the left on the same day, on the same time, and just at the time when the whole mob thing is kind of gearing up. This conveniently comes up to kind of tone that down and be like, oh, it's not us, it's them.
I think we're seeing a lot of far right activity. So, you know, we do know that they've been tracking a lot of these
case in point. Remember when when those Jewish places had all that hate stuff and they found out it was a black guy who did it? You know, a lot of times what you'll find with these things is it's someone on that side to do it to kind of say it's the other side doing it.
They've actually been tracking it. I mean, the right wing has been very dangerous in this country.
Now, I'll give you another example. I think it was like last year or 2 years ago with all those churches down in Mississippi. Who did they find out? I mean, it was they put nigger all over the place. They broke in the windows. I think they may have burned one down, but I'm not sure if they burned it down. And who was it? Who did they catch doing it? It was a black man.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'll have one little here or there, but when we start to look at the history of our country and we start looking at, if you study it yourself, because I'd rather you study it, take a look at it, than listen to me.
Again, I'm talking about recent history. If we look at the recent history
and take a look, I mean, a lot of the killings that we've seen going on, a lot of
not in recent.
Oh, yes, man, because they put the right. What you talking about? Right now, they've looked at the right wing and said the growth of that,
of course,
is one of the biggest terrorist groups that have been going on right now.
No.
So they're looking at it.
No. If you look at go ahead.
I'll say, listen, the right. Okay, this is what you have to understand here, Preem. All right. Your president ran on a white nationalist platform. He had to do it. Okay, that's what he did.
It's not that serious, man. He ran on American
He
first.
had to run on that. He had to run on that. That's his base. Okay, that's his base. Okay,
this is not
I don't like black guys walking around here thinking
he ran.
That's just safe around these guys.
It just so
They ain't
happens
your
that
friends.
the people.
These
Go ahead.
motherfuckers ain't down with you like that.
Go ahead.
Okay,
It
these
just-
motherfuckers
it
see
just
you
so
as a fucking
happens,
problem.
right, that
They
his
see
message
they see you as a
resonated
problem.
with a group
They
of
ain't
people
feeling
formerly
free.
on the other
They ain't
side
feeling
that
they ain't
happened to
feeling
be
your
white.
ass. They ain't feeling your ass.
So
Okay?
it has nothing to
Your
do
man
with
Jared Taylor told you.
they're not thinking about
Hey, let me.
like
Jared
that.
Taylor told you what they.
All you gotta do is look at recent history. That's all you gotta do.
Let me cut in here for 1 second.
And the
We're
facts
looking
right
at
there.
it. We're looking
Let me
at it.
cut in here for 1 second.
Stop
Let me cut in
sucking
here
this
1
white
second.
boy's. Stop sucking white
That's
boys'
all
ass.
you. That's
These
all you.
motherfuckers ain't down with you
All
like
you
that.
got to do is look at
Let
recent
me cut in
history.
1 second.
Yes, sir.
Let me cut
Go
in
ahead,
1
T-Bug.
second. My thing about Trump is this, man. Trump is a New York liberal running on a base of alt-right, right-wingers.
He ran a game.
He is a liberal.
Listen. He was a Democrat up to 2007.
Yeah, sure. But this has nothing to go ahead and do.
When he changed his game.
Again.
But he ran a far right wing
The
game.
derangement syndrome is to bring all things back to him. The derangement syndrome is to bring all things back to Trump.
The what?
That's a clear sign of the derangement syndrome. Is to bring all things back to Trump.
The derangement syndrome. What is the derangement syndrome? What is
it? The Trump derangement syndrome. Like he's like the ilk and the cause of like every damn thing.
Well, the ilk and the cause of syndrome. This guy ran for president. Okay, he ran for president. He represents a certain group. Who does he really represent? He represents
American.
Fuck
American.
you.
Job.
Fuck you, dude. He ain't talking about America.
Back up, buddy.
These Negroes. You always got the blackest motherfuckers walking around. Sucking these white boys' asses. Stop sucking this white boy. No.
Check yourself, dude. Seriously.
Hey, I check myself a lot.
This is that derangement.
You're walking around
straight up,
these white boys' asses.
Dude.
You love these motherfuckers.
No.
And these motherfuckers ain't feeling you like that. This guy is running. No, I ain't backing up nothing.
Back up, dude.
I don't back up.
Okay.
I go forward.
Back up, dog.
Now watch me put my
shit.
Now watch me put my shit in fifth gear and run straight through your ass.
Period. Can I get 10 seconds?
Now check this out. Okay. This motherfucker right here.
Mike, get 10 seconds.
Okay. These guys are running a certain type of game. No. These guys are running a certain type of game to run their platform. He's running on a.
Somebody take the wheel, goddamn.
No. Okay, Preem, go ahead. Say what you got to say, and then I'm what I got to say. Say what you got to say. Okay, go. Say what you got to say.
Give me 10 seconds. Give me 10 seconds. I want to say thanks to everyone who joined us in the chat. We reached the end of our hangout. We'll be back for economics on Friday, which would be episode 81, as well as maybe a special feature on Thursday, because I'm going to see Hunter Killer, which is a Russian, American Russian submarine warfare movie. So thanks for joining us. Hit the like button and also share, and we will see you on Friday.
All right, okay, guys. All right.